Welcome back to the Power of Nature podcast. Today I am saying goodbye. I have come to the very heartfelt decision to stop podcasting entirely and also to close this show and move on to a new way of communicating and talking about a lot of what I've been talking about in the Power of Nature podcast. And I'm going to be doing that in a new place via Substack. And it's called The Inner-Led Life. I'm going to be talking about a lot of the things that I talked about in the Power of Nature, but with a different angle. Now, if you have been listening to the Power of Nature and you heard me talk about a Substack before, that was, that didn't kind of go where I thought it was going to go. That was the idea of including my podcast, Power of Nature, on Substack, and then being able to share some other stuff too, for people. And I just wasn't ready for it. Frankly, I wasn't ready. I think I wasn't ready to give up podcasting, and I was still finding my own way and clarifying. And so what's happened since you maybe last heard me, or maybe you're stumbling upon this episode now, but I took a break from all of my podcasts. It was unexpected. What happened is I thought I was just late one week because I was getting ready for an art show, because I decided to share some of my art at a local event, and I had to go through the daunting task of figuring out how I was going to do that, getting a tent and a booth and figuring out ways to display my art and getting a printer to print prints of them and all of that. If you didn't know I was an artist, I am. I'm very much informed by nature. As a matter of fact, so much of what nature has given me is there's so many things, and one of them is my art and the creation and flow of the inspiration of art to me and through me onto, in most cases, a canvas with acrylic paints, sometimes watercolors on paper, but a lot of times canvas with acrylic paints. So I was getting ready for going to an art show, and 1 week of not podcasting turned into another week, turned into a lot of realization about things. Have you ever had this happen where you kind of get out of your normal groove long enough that you have some time to kind of see the forest for the trees? Is that what that phrase is? That's kind of what happened. I kind of got out of podcasting long enough to really do a lot of soul searching about things. And the conclusion I came to is that I have been on an amazingly wild 7-year ride with podcasting that has been the gift that keeps on giving, but that podcasting is not what I want to do anymore, at least not, for sure not in the way that I've done it, and I think not in any way for a little while. As I mentioned, what I have felt called to do is to move over to Substack. I think my inner self, my inner knowing was calling me to this over a year ago, but I kind of wasn't ready. I was dragging my heels and kind of needed to tie up some other ends. And now that is different. My new Substack is called The Inner-Led Life, and in it I share stories and I share teachings, I share all kinds of things about living in an inner-led way. And what I'm really talking about there is creating, living, and leading, following the knowing of our heart, body, and soul, what I call our inner self. And what I know is that one of the best ways to do that is by tuning into nature. Nature has always been a way in which it's like a it's like a platform or a signal of such truth that when I go into it, when I connect with it, I tune into my own knowing, my own self. And that's part of what I've tried to communicate on the Power of Nature podcast. I've tried to talk about, these different experiences I've had with nature and how they've changed my life and how I live, really. And they still do. And what I've felt called to do now, though, is to move over to this Substack because it's a great medium where I can share images, I can share audio, I can share writing, which for me, I can share some of my art when it's relevant. I find that a really helpful thing because whatever is feeling called through me, I can basically share in the manner that makes sense for that thing. But I also really want to talk about in the Inner Led Life how I'm going to be sharing a lot more about not just my experiences of tuning into nature and how it's changed me and informed me, how it's communicated with me, but how you can as well. I've had so many amazing experiences with nature. I've talked about them in this podcast. The birds, the animals, the horses, the chickens. Your animals might be different. And it's not about that, a horse is always the way that nature will talk to us or a bird is. It's about what's right for you. It's about what you resonate with. What I've come to understand really about our inner self and our own deepest inner knowing of our heart, body, and our soul is that our heart, our body, and our soul communicates to us through things that we feel a connection to. And a lot of us feel a very deep connection to nature because nature kind of operates at the frequency that our heart, our body, and our soul also operates at. It's like we're from the same source, which we are. And so it's a great way for us to be able to tune in. But you may not be a hawk lover or an owl lover. You might be somebody that loves, a snake, some kind of a bug, butterflies. Things that I haven't talked about. In the Inner Led Life, I'm going to be talking about some of my experiences with nature and with animals and how they can be messengers. But I'm also going to be talking about how, in seeing how I kind of tune into an animal or an aspect of nature and understand what it's communicating with me, that you can do the same with whatever aspect of nature or wildlife or an animal that connects with you. Talking more about how you can do it, because really that's ultimately why I started the Power of Nature podcast. It wasn't really about me talking about me. It was about me sharing stories of how I've done this, because frankly, it's changed my life so much. Nature it's done amazing things for me. And I want to share those. I want other people to be able to experience that kind of thing. And I don't think this is something that's taught. And maybe you do this on your own. And maybe what you'll hear if you tune into the Inner Led Life is how to do it more, because that's part of how it happens. You open up to it more, and I've learned how to open up to it more. From the very first time I had a connection with an animal or a plant or something living from nature, and then I learned how to open up and get that more. That's the kind of stuff I talk about, and I'm going to be talking about in the Inner Led Life. And I invite you to my new Substack to check it out. On Substack, I'm not sure if you're familiar with how it works, but there is, and the way I've set up my Substack is there are going to be 3 tiers. There's a free tier, which basically you can just join as a free subscriber, and you can get access to some of the written content, some of the audio content, which is kind of similar to the podcasts I've done, but they're much more specific to my audience versus myself. And I call those inner insights. So these are specific audio recordings in which I talk kind of like this, but about things related to inner-led living and the messages we can get from nature and how we can do it and all of that. So some of those inner insights and some of the written pieces will be offered to the free subscribers. So it's a great way to come on, check it out, see if that resonates with you. If it does resonate with you and you want more, then I also offer a paid tier where I offer written stories and content and resources, as well as inner insights that go deeper and further in their topics and in what I'm teaching and sharing about all of this, how to listen to our own inner knowing, how nature can be a major way to deliver magic to our life and help us connect with our own knowing and open up to it more. The paid tier is going to do all of that, but the other additional thing that's really important is that in my paid tier, I'm going to be doing monthly live gatherings where, as a group, we're going to be talking about, say, an experience or an inner insight, something that I've shared, or Q&A about living in this way and tuning into nature and messages we get and how can we understand. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things in those monthly gatherings. And you will have the opportunity. Those gatherings are designed for you to actively participate if you want, or sit back and just ponder it for yourself if that's what you feel called to do. I find that in inner-led living, we can be in different places at different times. Sometimes we want to talk, sometimes we want to share, sometimes we want to just hear that we're not alone in what we're experiencing, and sometimes we want to just take things in and reflect. And those live gatherings they're designed for all of that, to support you in however you want, however you're feeling called to live in that moment. So there's that. In the paid tier, there's also access to all of the previous inner insights, the full library. So what I find in inner-led living, living in this way, is that sometimes I talk about something and somebody doesn't have that experience until a while later. Well, if you're a paid tier member, you're going to be able to search the archives and find other things that might speak to you and something you're calling to feel validated on, not be so alone on, or maybe hear about my experiences on. So you can do that as well. And then I also have this other tier called a founding tier. I think it's called a founding tier. And it is, you get all of the free tier stuff and the paid tier stuff. Plus you also get access to a quarterly gathering, which is just for founding tier members. And in that, it's really for those that are really wanting to walk this path even more deeply and talk about specific things that come from doing that. So we'll have a separate live gathering that founding tier members can attend and participate in, or just listen in on. And then I also am going to be doing special inner insights, these audio recordings for that audience. Plus, they'll also get special invitations and offers related to some of my other programs and courses and things. So if any of that speaks to you, feel free to check it out. If it doesn't speak to you, also bookmark or keep in mind my website, michellewaldo.com, because there I will also be showing and sharing about any new offerings that I am coming up with. I do plan on teaching more and sharing more deliberately in a direct instructional kind of step-by-step way things I've learned about nature and tuning in and how to allow nature to speak to us and what nature is trying to convey to us by the experiences that we have in it. So stay tuned on my website if that kind of stuff is interesting to you as well. I will also be announcing that in my Inner-Led Life Substack. So you could stay up to date that way as well. But here's what I really want to share here. Regardless of whether you check out the Inner-Led Life on Substack or my website or anything that I do, I encourage you, if you stumbled upon this podcast or you were listening regularly, I encourage you to keep inviting nature into your life, or to start if you haven't. When I say that nature has changed my life, my connection with nature has been at the root of everything that I do and everything I've come to really value about all of my experiences in my life over the decades that I've lived it. I'm not understating it at all. Nature, my love of nature informs everything. It informs my art. It informs my storytelling. It informs every single decision and choice I've ever made in my life that were the ones that I so am glad I made. Every single time I've ever felt uncertain, I've ever not known what to do, I've ever been foggy and angry or sad or even happy, I have taken to nature. And nature has always been a place. It's like a place of respite, a place of celebration, a place of excitement, a place of messages, a place of connection. And if you're not experiencing that, or if you've experienced it a bit, but you want to experience it more, what you need to do is open up to it. Recognize this within yourself and just open yourself up to having more experiences like that, and you will. That is what I've done. That is what I've learned to do, and I continue to do, and I will continue to do. And I think that you'll find if you do the same, you can experience the wonderful benefits of nature, which is why I called this podcast The Power of Nature, because the power of nature is so strong. It's so strong. I mean, have you ever just felt really crappy and then you went on a walk in the woods, or you went, I don't know, around a lake, or I don't know, whatever, you maybe like the desert. Have you ever just noticed how it changes everything? It doesn't make everything go away. It doesn't mean like, that sick mom of yours that you have, or the relationship that's you're struggling with, or your job that you hate. It doesn't mean that those instantly change, or that they even change at all. But what changes is you. What changes is you, and how you are with you, how you're feeling, and how you're being, and what you're experiencing. That's what I've talked about. That's what I've experienced. And that's what I mean by the power of nature. And it is so, so strong. And it is available for us. You could live in the middle of New York City, surrounded by buildings, and you could just find one leaf, one little plant, you could just look at a picture of a mountain, or think about it, or the desert, or the ocean, and you can tune in to the amazing power of nature. You don't have to live in it. You don't have to go to a fancy retreat. You don't have to travel to it. You can find it in you just by focusing, because that which is at the root of nature and all that it gives us is actually at the root of each of us as well. We come from the same source. And that's why when we tap into nature, it reminds us of us. And to me, I've found it to be beneficial over and over and over again. So please consider inviting more nature into your life in any way, shape, or form that works for you. And I also invite you to check me out on my Substack, The Inner Led Life with Michelle Waldo. It's at michellewaldo.substack.com. You can also check my website, just michellewaldo.com, for other things. And I wish you well in exploring the power of nature and all of what it can do for you. Take care.